This is The Forest Daughter, and this is part 3 of putting together the Woods Edge double book set. I'm going to work on putting together the signatures that aren't the decorative paper right now. So I have a huge stack of all kinds of tea-dyed paper, a massive amount, and we'll be working by digging through this and trying to get different kinds and interesting pieces of paper. So I'm going to move that out of the way. Now I've got tea-dye bits of every scrap imaginable here. We'll just work around some of this. To start with, you're going to need a sheet that's the same size as most of the paper that's going to be in your journal. So these are the sheets that I had printed out. And I'm just going to grab one here to work with. Now, all the pages are not going to be the same size, but you need them to all fit in the same cover. So you have to have a maximum size, and I'm going to use this sheet of paper for that, and a pencil, and just start by picking some paper and cutting them out to fit that general size. Then I'll tear the edges on most. Again, I don't have a lot of fancy supplies and it's kind of cloudy today, but you'll understand what I'm doing. It's not complicated. So I'm aiming for 8 sheets before they're folded. A lot of texture. I like this. And when they're folded, that's going to be 32 surface areas. So that's about right. So I'm just going to go ahead and tear the edges off. I'm only going to make one signature. I need 10. It's all put together the same way. I have videos that show some of the tea dyeing information. That is time consuming, but it's not hard. You need a big roasting pan. I brew strong dark Louisiana tea, but any plain black tea will work. You put it in the pan, add a little bit of baking soda so that it isn't as acidic. Layer as many sheets of all different kinds of paper as will fit. They can stick out of the top a little. In fact, that gives you some interesting patterns. As after they've soaked for an hour, 2 hours, I spread them out on a vinyl tablecloth. You have to be gentle because wet paper tears. And I'll put a fan on them if it's in the house. I'll try to put them in the shade, but where it's breezy outside. And you have to work with them. They'll dry at different rates, and it seems like you'll be doing it forever. And you will, but once you get a good pile, it'll make 2 or 3 journals. So is this gonna work? Yeah. Which side do I want folded on the inside? Totally up to you. I'm gonna go this way. I thought this was a joke, these bone tools, but they're not. They really make a nice, easy crease. Get yourself one if you can afford one. They're under 10 bucks. So that's page 1, and I'm gonna go for different weights and different styles. I know in most of these journals, I'm gonna want some of this ledger paper. It folds to make cute little books tucked into the signatures. Get this side out. I may not count these smaller sheets yet, so we're still on 1. I have a lighter dyed sheet, so I'll work with that. Since this is a bigger sheet, I will need to have some idea of where to fold it. And here's where you get to decide if you want a flap that folds over, and on some of them, in each book I will. So I'll fold this over. Again, grab the bone creaser. That gives me a rough idea, and then I'm going to tear the edges on this as well. And they don't have to be exact. In fact, you want them to kind of ruffle on the edges when you look at them. So you want some differences in how tall they are. You want them all to fit within the boundary of your book cover though. So it's good to have a a sheet to estimate the highest height of the paper. And then if it hangs out too far widthwise, you can fold it in or tear it off. Sometimes folding in makes a neat flap where you can hide a place of hidden writing or a really interesting image. So I've aimed for 1 or 2 per journal. Got the tea pinky going on here. Trust me, that's the only way to get it out of my way. This is a real heavy 70-pound ivory paper that's often sold to make menus with. It takes the tea dye well. It's really pretty sturdy. I mean, it's nice and sturdy. So my books are a little chunky, but it gives you a place where you can use ink pens, do drawings without the fragile paper tearing. And I do try to include some fragile paper for differences in texture, but I want the bulk to be stuff that you can write on. These are journals for writing more than they are laptop books. Of course, you can do either. Both have a place, and I don't mind, but I like to write. I write poetry and journal entries. I deal with bipolar disorder, and even though my meds are good, sometimes journaling is a self-care feature, and a pretty journal makes that easier. So I'm going to fold that to the back. Okay, so we've got about 3 sheets, 2 or 3 sheets, aiming for 8. So I'm over here rustling in my stack of paper. I have this piece of really heavy brown wrapping paper. It's different than paper bag wrapping paper. It really doesn't tear as easily. So I don't have enough for a full-size sheet. I can do some this size, maybe something a little bigger than that. So how am I going to start? Let's see if we can even up an edge. I love the way this feels when you touch it. It has crinkles in it. They smooth out, they reoccur. Kind of neat. Okay, so that's a smoother edge. Let's go down this way. I wish I had more of this. I got it at a store that sells recycled craft supplies, and I haven't seen anything similar come in. If any of you guys know where I could get some paper like this, let me know in the comments, because it adds something. Okay, so this is going to be too skinny here. I'm going to cut it here, cut it here. Most of what I do is eyeballing once you get a general idea. I'm sure you can hear the crinkliness of this. It's great. And I don't throw away pieces of it because they work well in collages on the edges of pages when I'm feeling really artistic. I want the crinkly side out, the rougher side. And I'm going to even up these edges a little bit, not a lot. You do not have to use tea-dyed paper. That is my preference, and you'll hear me say this over and over again. My primary overarching theme in my books is to look like they have been wrapped in a piece of leather and tucked in a hollow tree and discovered years later. So we're up to 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have some tea-dyed notebook paper. I don't think it dyes as pretty as some of the other papers, but it'll work. On this, we're going to need, obviously this is I don't care if it's perfect, but that's just kind of a little too off. Even my paste, these little bits can be turned into little books that can be tucked into pockets, so I don't throw anything away. Clearly, I want to make a good pocket page. So I'm going to go ahead and tear off the bottom of this. I like to put 3 of these pages together, so it's kind of like its own little book tucked into the larger book. That is my pickle Staffordshire mix. Barkin, enjoy. Her name is Timber. She came with that name. I don't know how you would name a big old female dog Timber. We call her Dog Dog. Here's another sheet. Fold that one this way. I'm doing this kind of fast today. I don't usually go quite this fast. The whole stacked the same way, so it gives me an idea. Sorry, it should have been on the outside. Kind of where to tear this. I know some people use a torn edge ruler, but that tends to make all the edges look exactly the same. And I feel it loses something. So this takes time. If I'm doing 5 signatures of at least 8 pages, that's 40 of these that are going to be hand torn per book, and I'm doing a double book set, so that's 80 hand torn pages. It's not, I mean, it's, once you're doing it, it doesn't take that much time, and it's kind of a meditative thing once you get going. Sometimes I add pretty scrapbook paper into the pages if I have some, if it works well with it. It works better if you can find double-sided scrapbook paper, and I haven't seen it come into the craft thrift shop in a while. Colored paper, if it's soft and worn enough to work with the next 2. You see how this is torn crooked, but that really won't matter. It'll just add interest. And I want one more if I can find it. I didn't hand dye as much of the notebook paper this last time. It's fiddly. It's a thinner paper, and it just isn't as easy to work with. So this one is darker than I like, but you can write on it with a black pen, fine. Is that the way these are folded? Yes. Okay. Can you see this? It'll work. Sometimes a permanent marker will look a little better, but these little pages let you put lists of important things that have happened in a day. Every day I do a short journal sentence of what's going on in my backyard. Today I had mowed the lawn yesterday, so there were birds walking the grass. They were grackles. Grackles walking lawn. So yeah, it's functional, trust me. So I'm going to tear down this last of the set of 3, and I'll count the set of 3 as 1 page in the total of 8 that I'm going for this signature, because it's thinner paper. Most of my journals end up being fairly thick, 2.5 to 3 inch spine. I think these will turn out a little thinner, and then I'm hoping that the covers will work real together and I can stack them and tie them with a big ribbon as a set of 2. So this is tearing along the perforation, and that's okay. Okay, so we have 3. I'm going to put the darker one on the inside. Total personal preference. So you can feel it's crinkly. most paper crinkles, gets that crunchy sound if it's tea dyed. So what do we got going on here? We've got 3 of these, the dark heavy paper, the heavier tea dye, and a slightly different color tea dye. This, I think, was originally art paper, or maybe, I don't know if you can see the texture in it. It's got a texture to it. So I would usually stick something over these. So that's 2. And this is 3. You may not get clear to 8. But you can see kind of how I'm going here. I can find a different color paper that's even better. So I'm looking through my stash of tea dye paper here. Hoping for some that are a little thinner. Here we go. This took the tea dye with a much darker, dirtier look. Here's some with really interesting spread patterns. This is, when the tea dyed paper is drying, I sprinkle it with more dry tea leaves. And this looks like coffee. Sometimes it leaves an oilier looking mark. So, again, do I want a folded edge on this one? And I don't think so. So give me an idea of where we're working. And then I'm going to go ahead and tear this off following the edge above it. Now each of these pages is going to end up with some kind of decoration, probably a pocket, or tags tucked in, or a writing card, clipped to the side. But the underlying pages are all going to be where there's lots of room for actual journaling. But it can be your preference. I've seen books that are entirely beautiful paper and images, and there really isn't space to write in them. And if you want to write something, you tuck it in. That's fine too. So this is all heavy. This paper is another slightly heavy paper. And because I add a little baking soda to the tea, I think it's not as acidic as a lot of tea dyed paper. But it may age a little and discolor a little, and that's okay too. Of course, you can just use plain copy paper folder. You do not have to tear the edges, and it does not have to be this fancy. So what are we up to here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and then these 3, if I counted them, would be 8. But since it's finer paper, it needs a little more. Now it's also going to have the folded center illustration, which is heavy cardstock, glued to copy paper to make the design on the back. That's going to be folded, and it's also going to be sealed with polyurethane on the inside. So that's going to add one more heavy layer. So again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that one would be 5, and then I have the 3, 8. I think I'm going to add another sheet, maybe another 2. I also have some avocado dyed paper, which is a soft pink. That's not the look I'm going for in this journal, so probably won't be adding that. The avocado paper is done the exact same way. You just dry the avocado peels, just throw them somewhere as you go and let them air dry. Crunch them up, put them in boiling water, just like the tea, let it steep, and it turns paper a pretty pink. Do I want this little tag up or down? Up. And let's see. This is an edge of one of these pieces I've taken off. So I'm just building the skeletal structure of the actual pages right now. Usually I do a little more searching, a little more careful planning, but this is working fine. These are all the papers I have found that work really well. So when you're stacking these together, they don't all have to be matchy-matchy like this. You can slide one up, which I may do, so the tag sticks out the top there, and then one to hang a little further down. I usually use a 5-hole pamphlet stitch to put them in. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you want each little thing to at least hook on 2 stitches to hold it securely in the book. So that gives you an idea right there. And then I would have, of course, the pretty picture tucked in the center. Gives you an idea of what a signature is going to look like. So I've got 9 more of those to do, and you can use any kind of paper you want. I want to make that clear. I have tea-dyed book pages. Shiny magazine pages don't take tea-dye well, but all sorts of book pages you can find at a garage sale will tea-dye well. This particular journal, I didn't want a lot of type in, and I didn't want a lot of fancy, beautiful French script in. I think that's going to distract from the images, and I really wanted whoever gets, see, this is a little pink, that's avocado dye. I want whoever gets this journal's writing, their own writing, to be the focus. And I think all writing is beautiful. As you can see, I have typewriter writing on this tattoo and Latin writing on this arm. I love writing. I think it's beautiful in all its forms. So here we go. Signature 1. Join me for part 4.